Not very often that I make a video back to back about the same individual, but just a day after we made the video about Matthew Stafford seeking information, his agent that is seeking his worth, the Rams allowing him to see what his worth was, they came back with the number. This is unconfirmed, that number is $50 million. And we're here to have a conversation to see if you think Matthew Stafford is worth $50 million. Now, we went over yesterday, there are a handful of teams that are in need for a quarterback and could really take the services of Matthew Stafford. I am now thinking the Jets would really, really, really be a good fit. You've got Breece Hall over there. I mean, you got the dudes at Garrett Wilson. The Jets would be a good fit, but they went in on Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not sure they can. Aaron Rodgers is still part of the New York Jets, so for them to trade for another quarterback will be kind of weird. But Matthew Stafford, man, is not only younger, he's right around the same age that Aaron Rodgers was when he got his $50 million for his last year in Green Bay. And look how that turned out. The Detroit Lions wind up putting him out of the playoffs and out of Green Bay. But check this out. If Matthew Stafford was to make $50 million, here's the company he would be in. This is coming from Pro Football Talk. It says currently 9 quarterbacks have new money averages of $50 million or more per year. Dak Prescott, $60 million. Joe Burrow, $55. Jordan Love, which is ridiculous, $55. Trevor Lawrence, $55. Tua, $53.1. Jared Goff, $53. Justin Herbert, $52.5. Lamar Jackson, $52. Jalen Hurts, $51. Patrick Mahomes has a new money average of $45 million. However, the Chiefs have moved around money to give Mahomes better 4-year cash flow than most of the highest paid quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes has nothing to worry about. This dude signed that $500 million contract several years ago, and he's making money from everywhere. So I'm sure they'll probably find a way, because it was a 10-year deal. He signed a 10-year deal, man, making $45 million per year, but which puts him a little low on the average. As a matter of fact, a lot low on the average. But $50 million. I wonder if that is the number that they came back with when his agent was allowed to seek that information. Was $50 million the number that they came back with? Now, the question that I have for you is, do you think that Matthew Stafford is worth $50 million? Let me put this in perspective, and this might change your view one way or another. Right now, we know that these are the averages that they mentioned. Who they didn't mention, per average, Stafford is making less than Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, and Josh Allen per average. Now check this out. Out of all of these players listed, only 2 of them have Super Bowl wins. That would be Jordan Love and that would be Patrick Mahomes. None of these people who are making more money than Matthew Stafford on an average year per basis have Super Bowl championships. Not a one. So from that regard, you could almost argue that Matthew Stafford is worth $50 million. He's making around Derek Carr money, Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith. You're talking about the second tier of quarterback. And I think that that's what Matthew Stafford is kind of looking at. Like, listen, I'm a Super Bowl champion. I'm making second or third tier quarterback money. You're not. These guys that's getting paid more than me don't even have Super Bowls. Only 2 of them, as we listed, right? So here's my thing about Matthew Stafford. Should he be making more than he's making this year? He's making $23 million. His salary, he has a signing bonus of $4 million. So you could say $27 million. My thing about that is he's got injury. When he was with the Detroit Lions, as a matter of fact, his second to last year, 2019, he wound up having broken fragments in his back, but he went to win a Super Bowl after that. The dude is a warrior. There's no doubt about it. If you're a team, are you willing to make this risk? Now, one thing I will say in defense of Stafford, which I can't believe I'm doing, I'm trying to be non-biased, which is what, this channel is all about. If Stafford will play through injury, we've seen this guy. This guy is an absolute warrior. There's no doubt about it. It's just amazing how we had no offensive line in Detroit, not like we have now. I don't know how Jared Goff would fare having to go through what Matthew Stafford had to go through in Detroit with the offensive line that we had. Our offensive line wasn't always top 3 in the NFL. Now it is, and Jared Goff doesn't have to worry about that. But Stafford, that was a whole different thing. So we've seen the hits in Detroit. We've seen the hits in LA. If he were, and we talked about this yesterday, if you're a team, do you think that Matthew Stafford is going to take you over the hump? Because if you're going to give If the LA Rams don't want to give a guy $50 million, $50 million, that's crazy. Every time I hear 50 million, if they don't want to give him $50 million, then what team who has the cap space would want to pay a guy who's 37, Super Bowl champion, $50 million? Now, Tom Brady, he won a championship again after he was over 37, right, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's not the end of the road for Matthew Stafford, but what team could do it? When we talked about this yesterday, now that we know what his asking price is, let's see if I can quickly pull this up and see what the team's salary cap is for the NFL, because I know that the Detroit Lions, who don't need a quarterback, but they are 8th. What team could go? I keep saying the Jets. The Jets were really their defense has been stout for 5 years. Their offense needed to catch up with the defense. And then you got Aaron Rodgers, you got the Achilles situation, then you got an abysmal second year. And I feel like a guy like Stafford could take the Jets where they need to be. But what team who has the cap space or can create the cap space could be a landing spot for Matthew Stafford? If I was him, and I can't believe I'm about to say this being a Detroit Lions fan, I would have my agent. Well, you can't, there's only so much you can do. You can't tamper. But when I would find out what I could find out about the Minnesota Vikings, and that would bring him back to the NFC North. But I would find that out because I feel like a team like the Minnesota Vikings could be one player, could be that quarterback away from potentially winning it all. And that's tough for me to say, being a Detroit Lions fan, seeing as how they would win the division. They would also have a Super Bowl win before us. The Minnesota Vikings are a team that has never won the Super Bowl. So and they haven't been in 50 years or something crazy like that. It's been several decades. I know we haven't been, but we know that already. But the Minnesota Vikings, there were some rumblings at the trade deadline from Minnesota that Stafford, and I'm telling you, start believing this stuff, or at least think that there's some truth to it, because we heard the rumblings at the trade deadline about Matthew Stafford getting traded, and the Minnesota Vikings were one of those teams. I don't know what their cap space is looking like. I can't really pull it up right now, but Minnesota, if I'm Minnesota, I don't know how I can get around tampering laws or tampering rules with the NFL, but I'm going to look into this for sure. So let me know your thoughts. $50 million. Do you think it's worth it? I think you have to consider, even at 37, Matthew Stafford making $50 million, because I'm going to keep it a buck. There is no reason, in my opinion, that a lot of these guys, they have done absolutely nothing. And I mean, I would even have to say, I think Jared Goff has potential, and that's not even me being biased. But if I'm taking my bias out of it, like I said, just based on resume, Stafford is there are only 2 quarterbacks making more than him that have Super Bowl wins. And I think that is a travesty. So I think he has to be paid just from his resume alone. There's no reason this should be a thing, like real talk. So let me know what you think. That's what I think. I think the Minnesota Vikings, or a team, if you're looking at, I think if I had to do NFC, I would say Minnesota. If I had to do AFC, I would say the Jets. I don't know what you can do because you still got that Aaron Rodgers situation. Do you want to risk it again? I think Matthew Stafford would have been a better investment. He's younger. So, Aaron Rodgers was still in Green Bay, I think, around this time. So I don't know. But then you've already been traumatized by what happened with Aaron Rodgers. So I don't think it would be the Jets. But if I had to pick an AFC team, we saw yesterday, the Raiders are not going to win. They're not going to win. Stafford or not, they're not going to win. So that's just my thoughts. Let me know what yours is in the comments below.